24-24. How about William Byron winning the Daytona 500? A first-time winner. And daggum Austin Hill, how did you win again? Let's recap Speedweeks 2024 tonight on the Scrutineering Room. What's happening, everybody? David back with another episode. I needed a day to digest it. I also didn't want to take away from the Xfinity race and wanted to catch the end. So that's the reason I'm recording this on a Tuesday instead of a Monday night late. Plus, I got to work early in the morning. This is just a side gig. So let's get right into the meat of the sandwich. Let's talk about all our big winners this weekend. 4 big races. Let's start with Friday night's Truck ARCA doubleheader. Let's start with the trucks. A crazy race. I'll get to that a little bit more in my tech breakdown portion of the show. But how about starting the season off with a first-time winner, no sophomore slump, Nick Sanchez for Spire Motorsports with Rev Racing, taking his first career truck win Friday night in the season opener at Daytona, holding off Corey. Hyman finished second. Raja Crew third with Brett Holmes and give a call to Spencer Boyd finishing fifth. First race for his own truck team, Freedom Racing, with prominent former NASCAR crew chief Jack Hammond as team president. So give a call to a fresh young team, first race out. Incredible job by them. Afterwards, ARCA went ahead and this moved the Saturday afternoon race to Friday night because of weather fears. And Gustine pulling out the victory Friday night in the ARCA Menard Series season opener. Thomas Annunziata, say that one 5 times fast, finished second. Last year's ARCA 200 winner Greg Van Alst, the 23 winner, finished third. Christian Rose fourth. And no, I'm not butchering this, 5th place, Tim Richmond. Again, not a typo. That's the real thing. And not that Tim Richmond, the younger one. So a very jam-packed Friday night. Saturday, the weather was in the area. The Final Cut practice was canceled. They did manage to get Xfinity Series qualifying in. However, the rain came back around right after they qualified the Xfinity cars, and the rain literally stayed till Monday. With that being said, the Daytona 500 washed out to Monday. Third time in the race history, the race had to finish on Monday. 2012 and 2020, the other 2 seasons. Xfinity was hoping to run Monday morning to kind of give a precursor to the 500. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, the showers still lingering in Daytona, and that pushed the Xfinity race into Monday night prime time for a 9 o'clock start. But the sun came out once the rain cleared, and it looked like petty blue skies as far as the eye could see for the 66 Daytona 500. Real quick recap of that one, and honestly not too much. Lap 6, first big incident, Harrison Burton, Carson Hocevar collecting Jimmy Johnson, Austin Dillon, and it was kind of that little bit of a wake up, get yourself together. Hate to say it for Carson Hocevar. Hate to see that happen for Carson in his debut. Had a great dual race on Thursday night and really had some heads turned. Like maybe he could sneak in and surprise, but definitely nothing of his own doing. Unfortunately, was first man out on Monday. After that, things went very, very quiet. Outside of the two stage breaks, it was very clean. Second stage went clean wire to wire with the green flag pit stop in there. And everything went until lap 192. I will touch upon that in my weekend takeaways. But the big one reared its head, and boy did it. But that opened the door While Ross Chastain had the lead, however, he couldn't hold off William Byron, Alex Bowman. And while Chastain had the head of momentum, just the hole not big enough for his Busch Light Chevy going into the final lap. A little bit of a controversial finish, if you will, which led to multiple photos, multiple replays. But when NASCAR finally made their determination, it was Charlotte's William Byron winning his 11th career win, the 43rd driver to win the Great American Race. But more importantly, it comes on the 40th anniversary of All-Star Racing, what we now know as Hendrick Motorsports' debut in the 1984 Daytona 500 with Jeff Bodine. Rick Hendrick ties Petty Enterprises for the most wins in Daytona 500 history, his 9th. And a 1-2 to boot, with Bowman getting the short end of the stick. Christopher Bell 3rd. Great run for Corey LaJoie finishing 4th. And talk about from blunder to benevolent. Bubba Wallace's team on that green flag pit stop with 20 laps to go. Short-filled him, had to send him to the back. And it really was the blessing in disguise, as he was able to completely miss the big one at the end, restarted 15th, and thundered his way to the top 5 when it was all said and done. And I know Bubba Wallace fans, myself included, because Bubba was my pick to win. If that final lap did go green, oh my goodness, what could have happened? So there is the Daytona 500 ran out for you. Last but not least, the Xfinity Series season opener. And Austin Hill at Daytona just cannot be stopped. 3rd consecutive win in what is now the United Rentals 300. Sheldon Creed 2nd. Parker Retzlaff and Jordan Anderson for Jordan Anderson Racing 3rd and 4th. Chandler Smith in the 2nd Gibbs Toyota rounds out the top 5. And like I said, I'm going to get to that in a second, but a really wild Xfinity opener as a nightcap to a wild day at Daytona, a wild weekend. With that being said, let's get to my 7 weekend takeaways from this weekend. I'm still working on a catchy title for this, so bear with me. So let's start with the wrecks. There was so much wrecking over the weekend. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series opener, 12 yellows on Friday night. The Xfinity finale on Monday night was not that immune either. 9 yellows, including a wreck that had both Shane Van Gisbergen, also Jesse Love, Austin Hill. You had just about all the big players in that one, and still, somehow, Austin Hill managed to find a way back to the front and win again in the 300 miler. I just don't understand how the guy does it. Unbelievable. Speaking of wrecks, we gotta talk about the big one, lap 192. Just like Friday, and I actually am going to make a separate video about the Truck Series, I don't feel there's any blame to be had. Alex Bowman just trying to push William Byron up the middle. Byron's car got loose, danced from underneath him, sent him into Brad Keselowski, and boom. I said on Twitter, I said in multiple places, this reminded me of the 99 500 when Kenny Irwin aero bumped Dale Jarrett into turn 3 and sent him flying into the pack and took out about a third of the field that day. Unfortunately, and this kind of feeds into another point I'll have a little later, but when it comes to Daytona, you know these things are happening. It's a super speedway race. We have to anticipate things like that happening. But otherwise, it knocked the wind out of the sails of what was an epic Daytona 500 because of so much side-by-side, all of the great passing. Yeah, there was a lot of fuel strategy, which kept everybody close, and some weird things like AJ Allmendinger almost lapping a second and a half quicker than the pack by himself because everyone's trying to save fuel. But honestly, from the fan standpoint, you couldn't have asked for better. But the big one did quite lead to a very cliffhanger ending, which leads to my next takeaway. Number 3. All the wrecks, but not a lot of overtime. As a matter of fact, both Monday, Cup and Xfinity finished in their targeted distance. The Daytona 500 went 500 miles. The United Rentals 300 went its 300 miles. Outside of ARCA only had one overtime, but only the truck race went over its scheduled distance, and it only did by the 1 lap. So for all the wrecks and for all the yellows and for all of the time, at least in Xfinity and trucks anyway, we kind of got things buttoned up when we needed to and got everything done on time and in regulation for the most part. Number 4, I mentioned it earlier, Daytona is Daytona. Brad Keselowski said on Media Day on Wednesday that Daytona essentially chooses its winners. It's a little bit akin to what many Indy 500 winners have said, and it reigns true in this case. It's fathoms me that you have Kyle Busch 0 for 19, Martin Truex Jr. 0 for 20, Brad Keselowski 0 for 15 in the Great American Race. Busch and Keselowski in particular is great super speedway drivers as they are. Busch of course is a former Daytona winner in the summer race in the 400, and yet the 500 continues to elude him. And again, they're not the first big names to have gone their whole lives chasing the 500 to come up short, and they won't be the last. But my goodness, Daytona is Daytona. It is a place of wrecks, it's a place of close racing. You gotta take it for what it is, and you have to either accept it or don't. You love it or you don't. Maybe you'll find the middle ground. I hope a lot of us do. But Daytona's Daytona. You can't really script. You can't predict. Things have to go your way when it comes to the World Center of Racing. Number 5. The stars aligned for Chevrolet. Before I get into their weekend sweep, I want to talk about on the Cup side. Remember on Thursday and Friday when we were in practice, everyone was talking about Toyota being fastest in the draft. Everyone was talking about Ford being so quick. Not just in single car qualifying, but they looked really racy. Everyone kept quiet about the Chevys. Because they had their tested and true Camaro, and they weren't putting up the numbers. I think Mike Joyce said on SiriusXM when interviewed, I think the Chevys were about 3/4 of a second off the pace of the Toyotas in the draft. But lo and behold, once again, Chevy comes out when it matters. A weekend sweep starting with Sanchez on Friday. First and third with Spire in the Truck Series. Then on Monday, you get the Hendrick 1-2 in the 500, Corey LaJoie 4, 3 Chevys in the top 5 when Chevys at the start of the week were an afterthought, and then Austin Hill coming through and cleaning house in the Xfinity 300 again. You couldn't have played this better for Chevy if you tried. I think Jim Campbell's probably the happiest man on this Tuesday, seeing that the bow tie has reigned at Daytona yet again. third straight, excuse me, not third straight, I'm sorry, I forgot about Cindric. Back-to-back 500s for Chevy now. And this comes after we had a little bit of a Chevy drought. In trying to do this off the quickness on my head, but before Stenhouse, the last Chevy win in the 500 was Austin Dillon in 2018, and they had a little bit of a rough go of it for a while. And now here we are, Chevy back-to-back in the 500. Like we said, Austin Hill has gave Chevy 3 straight wins in the 300 now, and now you got Nick Sanchez, a first-time winner, proving himself in the trucks. So safe to say, Chevy has full bragging rights going into Atlanta, and they will hold those bragging rights at Daytona for Speedweeks at least for another year. Number 6, Sheldon Creed. What do you have to do to finally get over this hump? It's already bad enough that you finished second again in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I believe I heard somewhere, I think this is his 9th runner-up finish. But to be runner-up to Austin Hill, after what you said in the offseason about RCR being biased towards Hill being the reason you didn't get the equipment that you thought you could win with. For you to come out the gates and to come up short to Austin in a damaged car, no less, again. It's only going to be a matter of time with Sheldon Creed before the narrative becomes, it's not his equipment, but does Sheldon have the mentality to win an Xfinity? We saw it in trucks. He's a champion of the series. But is Xfinity a bite more than young Creed can chew? I hope I'm wrong. Based off what we've seen here, I think he'll be a very big asset to Gibbs. However, his words in the offseason will loom large over him until he finally gets into victory lane. And like I said, the more he finishes second, the more you're going to see the narrative of what's going on with Sheldon Creed. We saw it with Daniel Hemrick for the longest until he finally won. Sheldon Creed slowly going to get into that category. Last but not least, number 7, one time for NASCAR, Daytona International Speedway. And I also got to throw some love to the men and women of the Motor Racing Network to have not one, but 2 late night doubleheaders, not planned by any stretch of the imagination, to execute at the highest possible level. And for everything to work out the way it did. I don't work for NASCAR. I don't work for Daytona. I'm not a member of MRN, but what those men and women have been through over the last 4 days and what they have pulled off is nothing short of miraculous. My hat's off to every member of Motor Racing Network of Daytona International Speedway, every volunteer, every track member, crew member, everyone who helped to put these races together, for going through 36 hours of straight up pouring rain, 48 hours really, and just remaining the consummate professionals throughout. You really see what kind of passion, love, and joy these people bring. And my goodness, was it on display over these last 4 days. To NASCAR, to Daytona, to the Motor Racing Network, from one fan's perspective, the hugest, sincerest thank you and gratitude to each and every one of you all for all of the effort and every ounce of energy you guys have put in. I hope NASCAR and racing fans across the world that enjoy the doubleheaders on Friday night and Monday night. And let me not forget the men and women at Fox as well, particularly the production teams at Fox. I'll throw them in here as well because they've been in Daytona all week long. Thank you to each and every one of you all. Again, I commend, I applaud, because you cannot begin to imagine what they could have been going through and all they've done. Yes, they love the sport, and yes, they have a passion for it, but it's something. It really is. My hat's off to you all. Hopefully we don't have to do this too much in 2024, because all this moving around and piecing, my goodness. But whenever they do this, and it wasn't just this weekend, but in times past, I'm pretty sure in times in the future, these guys have stepped up to the bat. They have been very gracious, and they have done it with such class. So one final time, to NASCAR, to Daytona, to MRN, to the production crew at Box Sports, thank you for what you have done to make sure we, at home and at the track, can enjoy this great American race this year, despite what Mother Nature threw at it. That's my thoughts of Daytona Speedweeks. Thank you guys so much for watching. Got a couple more videos coming out in the very near future besides this one. What'd you guys think of Speedweeks? Very crazy. Very on the edge of your seat. But no, I got plenty more coming. Plenty more content. Again, leave me a comment. If you see this anywhere on social media, throw a comment under here. Subscribe if you feel so kind, and stay tuned. Again, plenty more coming from me. Thank you guys for watching. Scrutineering Room, David signing off. See you next time, and until then, keep a smile on, everybody. You look much better when you do. So long.